Two Aussie Birds, two Aussie Birds. So this is the intro before the intro of these next two videos. Right, so episode 2, this is episode 2. We've just recorded, we've been recording for 4 hours before Kelly's power went out because of a massive storm that was coming. And I thought I'd do an intro to this because if you are new to our channels, please like and subscribe, number 1. Number 2, we have a playlist and it's Two Aussie Birds. So we've started this podcast, Kelly and I, where we talk together, two friends chatting, and we will go into massive explorations of our lives and just trying to work out the paranormal from the normal. And this next video and the next 2 videos, Kelly tells this epic tale, which is probably better than any Hollywood film, probably parallels a Doctor Who season. It's very Doctor Who. It's very out of this world. And the kind of caveat we have is that you can either take it or leave it, because even she, as the experiencer of it, is still trying to work out whether it was true or not. So we want to just lay this intro first and say, watch the first episode that we did in the Two Aussie Birds podcast. This is now the second episode that I'm about to show. And because we went on for so long, it became a 2-parter. And it'll then be a 3rd episode. And at the end of the 3rd episode, I'm asking her questions about the story she's just laid out. So buckle your seatbelts, get a pot of tea or a coffee or something. And this is one of the most intriguing, interesting tales you will ever hear. And it's about the time when Kelly met a super soldier. And we will ask the questions that are mind-bending questions, because the story in itself and the experience in itself is phenomenal. I hope you stick around and watch every part of it before you make a comment, because that is something I've noticed, is that people watch the first 5 minutes, they make a comment, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the video, or their questions will be answered in the rest of the video. Do yourself a favor and watch and listen to all of it before you comment. Watch and listen to all of it before you comment, okay? And just know that I am very, I'm listening to her tell this story, but there are times when I have to stop her to clarify things for the audience. I may have to put in a little interjection to elaborate or expand on something, but for the most part, she is telling this epic tale or this story, and all of it, my bits and her bits, make a very cohesive storyline of this whole experience that she's had in her life, that leaves us with a lot of incredible questions about the nature of our reality. And please share this video if you enjoy this. And it's a fascinating, incredible experience that is beyond 3D. So listen up. Love you all. Comments below. Please like and subscribe to both of our channels, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey girlies and boys, if you're watching, hi, it's us. It's the Two Aussie Birds. We've got Kelly Jones.
G'day.
Kelly Jones, all the way up in New South Wales, in the country, knee deep in mud.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
And me,
Pigs, mud, chickens.
JCK, having a bad hair day, so putting a fascinator in my and zhuzhing it up with some red lipstick and pretty much nothing else. Nothing else.
Well, I love this podcast.
Yeah, go.
Because we're just so very messy and real. It's like, it's great. Yeah.
So I'll do a little intro. So I'm JCK, Quantum Truths JCK. You may be watching it on my channel, Quantum Truths JCK, or Tartaria Australia, which is Kelly Jones's channel. And eventually we might even put it out as a proper podcast, you know.
I think we should,
retrospectively. Mark Devlin told me that Spreaker is a good one to put it on. And so if you see smoke, I don't smoke. This is incense. We're just doing some clearing here. And so we're two friends, two Aussie birds, two the little maggies. And then someone goes, "That's a male magpie." And I'm like, really? Really? It doesn't matter. Okay. So.
Well, what's to say what's male and female in this world, really?
Exactly. Exactamundo. So what I wanted to say to everybody is we're two friends. We are, like, you're one of my best friends. And so I just, you know, we shoot the breeze all the time, and we wanted to sort of bring it out as a podcast. Now, here we have two friends talking. Inevitably, there's going to be overlapping of conversation because it's Zoom. We're not in the same room as each other. We're friends. So we're like, oh, yeah. And we get excited and we talk over the top of each other. And we also have, so these first two podcasts that we're recording is I'm interviewing or facilitating Kelly to tell her story. So sometimes as the host and as the producer of this show, I am looking at this from a producer's perspective, and I am trying to facilitate Kelly and get her to get into the conversation in a certain way. And last podcast, we left it on a cliffhanger, and really we decided that we wanted to do this podcast, Kelly, because you said to me privately, you said, nobody knows the real me. I've not ever exposed that. I've always felt very, very sort of freaked out to tell my real story. And I was encouraging you and saying that people need to see the real you. We can't just hide behind facts and things and present. And I just think it's time that people start being themselves as much as possible. And that may include revealing some vulnerabilities. And so I had to keep bringing you back into saying your vulnerabilities, because I could see you were steering off into the public external stuff, and I was going, so that's where that was. So that's the only reason why I was interjecting in the last podcast. So, my friend.
I mean, look, I mean, it's like, it's fair for me to agree with that statement because, you know, there's been a lot of experiences that I've had in the last sort of 15, 20 years that, you know, when you put it all together, it just sounds fucking crazy town. And every time I sort of rear my head publicly on these topics, like, my reality starts to crumble slightly. So I have definitely formed this habit of, and it took me a lot to get on and start doing the YouTube podcast with Tartaria Australia. And it was only because I couldn't help it. I was so excited about, like, you know, the information, but it took me a lot to start to rear my head publicly again after sort of the last 15 years. So, I mean, the events that occurred to me definitely impacted my ability to feel safe and sound in basically being me. So, you know, these are vulnerable podcasts for me, and I've definitely I only got like I'm going to say talked into it, but I only got like gently supported into it because of our friendship and just my trust and respect in your being and who you are as a human being on this realm. So this is like an untold story. I haven't told any of these stories, certainly not in one go, you know, maybe
you
snippets here and there.
You did to me. When we first met each other, I remember we would record these long voice recordings for each other because we had different schedules. It wasn't like we were on the phone talking. We'd leave these long voice messages for each other. And I mean, you're the epic storyteller, you are the best storyteller. So you told me this story which kind of had parallels to me. And first, before we begin, hit the like button and subscribe to our channels, please. And please share these interviews, wherever you can. Just share these interviews because you will hear some pretty fascinating stuff. The other thing I wanted to say is our last recording, episode 1, was where Kelly was talking about her life and this fascinating, incredible, like 5 lives lived in one. And then we did a very controversial thing where I did a mini entity release on you, and to the 2 trolls that trolled me about it, I want to ask you, how are you feeling after that? Because we did it seems bizarre, but it's an unseen realm. This is a real thing. We can do entity release. It was a bit clunky and not how you would normally do it, but we did a brief little release. And so how do you feel after that?
Yeah, I mean, to follow up on that, it was it's easy for me to drop into those spaces with you, but I tell you what, so the overall impression we got from that entity was this statement, "You're shit," right? Which it was such a simple 3-liner, but man, once because when you were pulling it, you asked the angels to come and remove it and pull it out. I got this really tangible pain, to the point where I clenched my fist when you were doing it, right up my shoulder, up through my neck and up through my head. It was 3 pulses. And I was like, whoa, just as you were saying, angels come and clear it away. So that was the first thing that happened. And then when we finished the podcast, I had time to sort of assimilate it and feel what I just experienced. And man, like I had said to you before, what brought us to these podcasts is I've just got so much self-criticism going on so when I sit here questioning reality and questioning what all this is and what I'm putting my faith in and, that pathway, I was really in a state of self-criticism, and which essentially is basically saying to myself, "You're shit." Essentially, that is the key. That is the essence of that energy. You're shit. So a couple of things that I realized. One was I've had this slight. You won't be able to see it, but a very slight red rash around my neck my whole life. And I'm an avid water faster. So I believe if water fasting can't clear something, it's staying. Right. So when you do 40 days water fasting, if it's not meant to be there, it goes. So I just put it down to a birthmark. And but the entity that we cleared literally had his big rock hard mountain arms around my throat, strangling me and saying, "You're shit." And I've literally had that impression going on in my. So that was the one thing. I was like, "Oh my God, that's powerful."
Wow.
And just whenever I end up driving people crazy, which happens, which is why I have this fringe thing of not talking about my stories, it's always about the tone of my voice or the words I'm speaking. And there's something about how I speak or the sound of how I speak that literally drives people crazy.
I actually love your voice. I love hearing you speak. I don't ever feel it.
Well,
crave hearing it. Yeah.
So, it was just interesting because the entity was literally strangling me to silence me. And, then "You're shit. And honestly, if I look at all the discordance I create around me, because I do polarize people's energies around me quite strongly, if they have any sort of energies attached or entity attached, man, do I drive it, and it's always about the sound of my voice.
That's what it is, though, Kelly. And this is what I'm saying. The more I explore it, the more I talk to people like Jerry Marzinski, the more I speak to my friend Laura Whitworth, who is a professional in this field, both of them psychotherapists, and they're both saying that there are entities in our energetic fields that are not just our thoughts. They literally take trauma of any kind and manipulate that for you to think these negative thoughts about yourself. And they're very sneaky, and they will go, it's all the shadow parts, but it's them and it's us. So it's kind of this melding, but we can trigger the entities in others. So if we're beaming a lot of light and the other person, as good or bad as they are, will have some kind of an entity attached to them that they haven't cleared, it can trigger them to react to us. And so, we have this joke, me and a lot of healers, is like, oh, we triggered the entities in them. Like if somebody's trolling me, for example, I just laugh now because I just go, yeah, I guess I triggered the entity in that one, like my light was too bright for that one, and we usually take it personally and we think, oh, that, I know I stuck my finger up before at the trolls earlier, but, this is what's happening, basically. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah,
so,
it's really
feeling better. Did the rash go away?
Oh no! Well, I just thought it was. I've read a lot of books documenting people's experience with past lives, and when they've been killed in a past life, coming back with birthmarks or stains on their vehicle that indicate where they were traumatized and died. And I feel like this was a mark. So, but ultimately at the end of the day, like of all the entities that could have come up in that moment and we could have seen, like the fact that they were actually strangling my neck, I had to connect that in. Like that was the first entity clearing I've ever done. And straight away it's at the one place in my body there's some sort of mark. So, I just definitely say that. And, I definitely haven't been feeling so shit. I've been feeling good, man. That energy's definitely shifted in me, definitely. And I know because the stories that we'll get into in this podcast, where it left me vibrationally was it actually traumatized my psyche. Like I actually felt a bit of a split in these narratives that I was going down and these pathways and this evidence that I was getting from these stories. It did affect my confidence standing with knowing who I am, like knowing myself and knowing that truth and having faith in me. And I can see where in that moment trauma entered and fragmented me. I can see it because it was after that I was like, I'm never doing YouTube. I'm not going to publicly rise again. Like I'm just going to go quietly into the woods and become a master, in nature. So
you're talking.
It impacted me.
Okay, so you're talking about the trauma. What time frame or how long ago?
We left off when I just got to the farm last time. But just before we get into it, I'm saying I acknowledge where I could have, through my own experience and being traumatized, allowed a gateway into my energy, which would have enabled entities or energies. I can acknowledge that. Yes.
Honestly, it's literally a field day that these things are having with all of us. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that anybody is bad in any way because everybody has this affecting them to some degree. So you may not even know or pinpoint where it came from. It could even be from birth, could even be attached through past lives, or
absolutely.
What happened with me is they said that they've been tracing me through every lifetime. That's the story from another time.
I can get that.
Pursuing me from the beginning of time. Is it okay if I show everyone what what this guy was? This guy looked like in your head.
Oh definitely. That's like this guy. That's right. Yeah, fucking oath. Like when you sent me that, didn't you, afterwards, or Campbell or someone?
I think Campbell did. And then I said, that's exactly what I saw.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
that's exactly it.
Yes. It's like this big mountain, blobby rock man.
Yes, that is, and it was orange. That is exactly the entity that I saw. It tripped me out when he sent me that. I was like, oh my God. I didn't even know this. I'd never seen this image before. So yes, that's it. That's the one. Yep. And it was strong and ancient.
I can't look at it.
I know, it was a trip. Yeah, it was trippy. Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because when I was releasing it from you, I didn't feel it was malevolent. I just feel that it was very ancient and it was lost. It was a consciousness attached to mountains or the earth, and it was irritated, and and I say to you that perhaps it was attached to some land that you were on, that you were partying on. Maybe you went to a rave, maybe you were out partying, and it hooked in. Maybe you were on some psychedelics or whatever, and then it hooked in that way. This is what happens. Auric field is open.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, it could have been with me. It felt ancient enough to have been with me since the beginning of time in this realm, That's how it felt. Like, it felt integrated into my being. The difference was that in the last couple of years, as I felt traumatized, as something happened in my life, which happens in all of our lives, I could start to hear it. And the hearing it was integrating into this idea of self-criticism or self-doubt or your shit energy, which hadn't have happened before. So by the result of me being impacted in some traumatic way in my own life enabled, otherwise it could have just been there forever, and maybe I would have just got along with things forever, and it wouldn't have been something that I would even acknowledge, So on that level, trauma is good for us, right? Because it actually brings all the shit up.
Yes, of course, the shadow part. Yeah, all of it in all of it, or in all the negative, the duality of everything. The dark always plays a role that helps us in the light. But I was going to say that these voices that we believe are our own, the only difference between a sane person and a person who's experiencing psychosis, a paranoid schizophrenia, is that they can audibly hear them. So it's literally like it then becomes like they're drowning in these voices, okay, which are actually entities. And that's what we're exploring now in these interviews I'm going to be doing with Jerry Marzinski and guests. So that's what's in our ether, right? It's sort of, it's there, and it's our job to clear trauma and acknowledge it and heal it. And depending on the degree of trauma you've been through, depending on the amount of substances you've taken, and that is the reality, my friends. Like, this is why I don't drink alcohol. I mean, the stuff that has happened to me, sans alcohol, sans drugs, is very, it's on the brink of that, what voices that people have heard. Okay, so just being psychic and living between two realms is enough to, if we are not practicing things correctly, can tip us over the edge into getting attachments and hearing entities that are very manipulative. And this is why I'm so careful with all of this stuff. So
you're good with that, mate. I'm less careful, and I've got an acid story that's an interesting one. I actually want to share this story. Can I share this acid story?
Now this is what I'm going to do, right? So everybody get ready, because this is a beautiful podcast. We don't know how long it's going to go for. I got a pot of tea. I got a pot of tea. Oh, hang on, here's my pot. Looks like Where's Wally? I got my pot of tea, and I just want to say thank you to Susie, who gave me this Cornish tea.
I'm jealous.
Cornish tea.
I'm Cornish. Yeah,
you're Cornish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Susie lives in Devon, but I met her when we did the retreat, and it's from Cornwall. When I was in England, I was driving around and I kept talking with this Cornish accent, and I kept picking up all the accents, and it was great.
I grew up half in St Ives in Cornwall. Amazing, a little pirate town. Yeah, cute as golden seals, cobbled stone, beautiful.
Yes. I really want to. I want to go back, and I'd love to. I want to go back to Cornwall because I just have a feeling, a connection to it. So let's sit back. I'm going to have my pot of tea, and Kelly pour another.
Well, this is just a side note story, but it's an interesting one because
that's okay.
It's to do with acid. So, but just what happened to me in this experience, it was a very sovereign moment for me. So, there I was, I took some acid. I was on my farm. There was no one with me. We were out in the backyard. I had my friend with me. She was the only one there. So we took some acid, and just at the moment when the acid was about to hit, we decided very stupidly my friend was eating bread and she was having the best time eating this bread. And I like never eat when I do things like this because, of course, you don't produce saliva. Like your whole chemistry changes. Anyway, I thought she was having the best time. So I ate some bread and I started choking on this bread. Right. So the bread actually went into my throat and it got stuck in my throat and my whole throat constricted around this bread and I couldn't breathe. And it was right at the very moment the acid was like hitting, right? So my friend who was there, she was gone. Like she was in her own hallucinogenic, having the best time ever, talking to the flowers, like beside me, no concept of what was going on for me. And I'm suddenly unable to breathe. And I'm unable to breathe in such a way that I am immediately acknowledging that I'm in trouble, right? My whole being can't breathe. I can't move. I'm in trouble. The acid is peaking my brain. And I know that I'm actually in a bad, and I'm starting to acknowledge this. Oh my God, okay, if I don't have someone come and like do some sort of Heimlich on me and get it out, that's going to be a problem. And then I'm like, oh my God, I've passed this moment. If someone's going to have to come and stab a pen into my neck, like it was that serious. And I was like, holy shit. I am about to die. Like I was like having this conversation in my head, like the observer, like, are you fucking serious? You are going to die choking on bread? Like, is that it? Like that? No fucking way. But at the same time, like I was in total panic. Like I knew that as soon as I passed out, that would be it. I knew that if I passed out, there was no one there to save me. I wasn't going to be able to get out of the situation. Such a simple situation, couldn't get out of it. And I was in a really big moment of recognizing my life and death. So I started to turn blue, like I'd been in a situation maybe for 3 or 4 minutes now where I couldn't breathe. And we'd passed anyone trying to save me or help me. And I'm starting to turn blue. This is in 2013. And so just as I'm about to pass out, because I know that if I pass out, that's it. That's the end of my lifetime. What a fucking loser way to die. I couldn't believe it. I was so pissed off. I was like, fucked. No way. I can't believe this is happening to me. So anyway, in this moment that I turned blue, it'd been minutes and minutes and minutes. And just as I was about to fall forward, basically, and pass out, I fell to and this all happened really in one action. I fell to my knees. My body symbolically put me into, I was doing C&E, ramp to C&E meditation at the time, which is consciousness and energy, where you bring up you do lots of breathing work and then you blow it out. And in that moment, I fell into that position, and with what was left of my consciousness, with everything that I had, because I had nothing left right at this point, there was nothing else to think about. I screamed inside of my mind, I live. I was like, I live. Like with everything inside me eternally, and then bang, fell into this and left my body. And like I was literally suspended out of my body, I reckon 10 minutes. Like, and my friend at this point had actually just like she was aware of what was going on now. I sat suspended in this position out of my body, and I was aware I was out of it because everything ceased. I didn't have any problem breathing. I had no sensory experience, no pain, no suffering, no panic, no stress. Like I out of my body, no connection to my physical form, being without breath. And I stayed in that space. And in that moment, a few things happened. I acknowledged in this void, this complete void, that I'm not my body. Number one, I was not in my body at all. She reckons I was in that space for 5-10 minutes. Just suspended. Suddenly, like this thing where like I did a big fart. Snot started coming out of my nose. Eyes were leaking. I wet myself. Like every area that could liquid came out. And then I did this big like burp vomit and the bread came up, right? And I was back in my body. But what I realized at that point is that in that moment, I chose life. I put all my energy right to the void because I'd been trained to hold my breath. And then when I release that breath, I release it with one single point to the end of that breath. That was what I'd been trained in. And I, in that moment, had the fortitude, the discipline to say with everything left that I live. And it took me out of the death moment, suspended me, and I re-entered. And in that moment, I knew that I couldn't die accidentally. I literally had saved myself. Like anyone else would have required intervention. And in that moment, I realized that it was my sovereign being, not Jesus Christ, not the angels, not any of these external forces. It was my own sovereign being that had the consciousness to actually bring myself out of that moment and choose life. And fucking hell, JC, the last thing I was ever going to do was die choking on bread in my backyard. No fucking way. Like, I want to see this lifetime out.
That's my nightmare. I've been in those situations of choking and almost dying, but not like that. That's, and wow, that's the final act of, that's pure sovereignty in its,
Well, I feel like I initiated myself in that moment. I did some form of, when you hear all the initiation stories of Jesus in Egypt, and I feel like I did an initiation there, and it was really pivotal to my life moving forward, like to know that it is me that needs to save myself. And it was my consciousness and choice to be disciplined with that consciousness that did it. It was not an intervention from a higher source or from other entities.
It fits in with every near-death experience story that I know, and in all of them say the same thing, that it's up to them whether they live or die, and they bring themselves back. They make the choice that they bring themselves back.
Yes.
And that's crazy. Wow. You actually did kind of die, because that's exactly what happens.
I died.
The losing of the bowel, like the whole, everything you let go and all the liquid comes out, and then you, wow. What a, So when you're in that void, you reckon 5 to 10 minutes. Do you know how your body looked? Did you have a external feeling or an observation?
No.
Did you just have this awareness? Did time stop?
Yep. It wasn't a visual experience. Like I was, it was a sensory, it was a while ago now. I wish you'd asked me that question when it first happened, and we would have got the documented facts. But in my memory, when it happened, it wasn't like I was hovering above my body, like I was, astral dreaming or something. It wasn't like that. It literally was a non-sensory experience where I didn't need breath. I didn't need I was out of what the body was and how I exist as Kelly Jones in this body. I was in the observer, but I wasn't observing what was underneath me. I was just in a sense of complete consciousness. So that's
amazing. I've had those experiences fully, how do I put it, in a semi-meditative state of
that's amazing.
It's called Satori.
It took me to die. It's way more mature way to get there. See, that's the difference between a master.
I had that experience live on a video. It's this knowing. It was kind of like came over me in that, as I was going into the theta state, it kind of this wash of knowing all, and that I suddenly felt like I was not I was not my body, and that and I could see it all, and it was funny. Life was fun. It was funny. I just thought it was all very simple and funny, and I've had those moments, those experiences of Satori, and I guess
Satori. What does that mean? That word Satori.
We can look up the exact meaning. Yeah, Satori. We can look up that exact meaning of Satori, but I think it's kind of like this knowing, this oneness of, someone in the audience is going to say, you don't know what it means. Let me just.
I don't know.
I'm going to look it up to give the exact meaning, and it's almost like you can't explain. It's like you can't explain the feeling. So it's like
our language doesn't do it. Our language doesn't.
Knowing all and comprehending all, and it's like it's the oneness, really. So I'll give you the exact meaning. I think we talked about this in one of our podcasts with Campbell, where I brought up Satori, and you asked me this: what does Satori mean? And I said it. Satori means the experience of awakening or enlightenment or apprehension of the true nature of reality. It is often described an experience which cannot be expressed in words.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
While the term Satori...
Well, that's a lot of our lives then.
So while the term Satori is derived from the Japanese verb to know, Satoru, it is distinct from the philosophical concept of knowledge, as it represents the transcendence of the distinction between one that knows and knowledge. It is like this all-knowing. That's all I can say. It's like this. It's like being dead. It's like leaving the body, and it's probably the natural state of our soul, our consciousness. When it leaves the physical realm.
Yeah.
And it just knows, it becomes part of the all, and it knows all. And I'm not saying I suddenly became wise, but I had this feeling of rising above it all and just knowing and not having any awareness of the body. And it's just, I am all, and I can see all. And it was, you can't explain it. It's like you feel like it's funny. It's so simple, like the drama that we experience in the 3D world.
I know.
And then you rise above it. And I bet you, so when you die, I'm assuming, if you're not earthbound, you would have that. You would go, well, it doesn't matter what my body looked like. It doesn't matter that I died like this. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You see the perfection in all. It's also part of it as well.
Yes,
that's crazy. Thank God you're here. That's a turning point for you. And I had a choking and the same thing. It was kind of like this crossroads of like, I could have died and I could have stayed alive, and I know that my life changed on a different path after that choking incident. That's the matrix glitch that I had with the cat. So anyway, long story.
Yes. I know that story. Yes.
So let's get into your story. I want to get into, sorry for interrupting, but I want to get into your story, your story. So we left off last time with Kelly talking about being alone on the farm, and then she said, and that's when I met the super soldier. And so this story I know well, because you and I, you confided in me, you told me about it. I think it's absolutely fascinating and brings up so many more questions. And then I kind of had I guess we had a parallel experience. And so you and I will talk about this, but I want to hear, and the audience wants to hear your story. So So
okay, well let me
ready, my friend.
Okay. All right. So let me just preference this story with two incidents, because I feel like there were a few significant things that happened to bring that about with that collision, because it's a big one. One was, and these are random little snippets. One was I obviously do water fasting. So that was a big part of my process. Every couple of years I'd do a long water fast. Why I mention that is because I really believe doing that it's a reboot of your frequency. There's something about it that cleans out everything and reboots your frequency band. So after the acid incident, probably a year after that, I started to get these very strange pulses going through my body just during the day, where it made me feel like I was vibrating all my cells internally were vibrating super quick, right? And if I looked at my hand, they were deadly still. But what I thought I would see was this like total shaking thing, because that's what I was feeling internally. And it increased and increased and increased to the point where I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I actually thought I was having some problem. And then it started to impact my heart. It would just start to vibrate really quick. And to the point where I would actually have to lie down in the middle of the day just for 20 minutes just to calm everything. And that's bullshit for me, because I'm a very active person, especially on the farm. I definitely don't lie down in the middle of the day for half an hour ever. But it was starting to really like worry me. And so I went to a crystal bowl healer and did a session with her. And the last thing I did before we went into the session was like, I want to know what's happening to me. I want to know. So she has the session, I fall asleep in the session, and then out of nowhere, this voice. And this is the voice I've heard 4 times in my life. The first was at the monastery, same voice, right? It's a really high vibing voice and always gives me positive information. So I know it's not demonic. And it's always during the day. So that's another thing. But this time it actually woke me up. It was yelling in my ear. It's the quickening, really loud. It freaked me out. I jumped up out of my slumber, landed smack on my bum, freaked out the person doing the bowls, and I was like, whoa, like I'd never been yelled at in my head before. It's the quickening. I never heard those words before. The only time I'd actually heard those words was in the The fucking movie, The Highlander. That was the only reference I had to this concept of the quickening. So I didn't know what it was. At the same time, the bowl player, who ended up being quite a nemesis of mine, unfortunately, and did actually result in the collapse of this farm behind me, my beautiful farm. She, actually at the same time, watched my bands be reversed. Like, this is in her mind. She just came out and told me this. Bands were reversed. This light was going into my bands like lightning. And she freaked out thinking something very bad was happening. And then this same voice apparently said to her, so the voices, you see, they can be also in our favor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's my higher self speaking.
Yes.
Said, this is not for you to worry about. This has nothing to do with you. This is just about Kelly. Just don't worry about this, because she was freaking out thinking it was bad.
So hang on, wait. The bands are reversing. Explain that.
So she energetically saw, while she was playing the bowls in her mind, she saw my energetic field reverse. So she saw my energetic seal, my bands, I call them energetic bands, which we have around us, be reversed. And these strikes of lightning going into my bands. And then she got told, don't worry about it. It's nothing to do with her. She actually said, you're not at this level. And that pissed her off massively. And that started our collapse. It was actually that statement.
Did you hear that as well?
No. I didn't hear that. I just got it's a quickening. And I was like, fine,
so the quickening, this is
hell.
Interesting because Stuart Wilde wrote, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. I would have loved to have met him. Stuart Wilde wrote a book called The Quickening. And I remember back in 2003 trying to read that book on my way to the US to go live and work for a while. And I couldn't read it. And it was after all my experiences, I was able to get into it and read it because it's really high knowledge. And I think in his book, he explains a lot about Taoism and stuff like that. But what do you think the quickening is? And then I'll let you go on with your story.
Well, no, what do you think? Tell me. I still don't have many references to it. That's just the exact words
it's
it
like
said
an
to me.
ascension.
I didn't have any reference.
It's an ascension process, and it's like a quickening of that ascension process. There is kind of like these whole, it's a vibratory, on one level, it's a vibratory frequency shift into a higher frequency. And, or you can do certain things to quicken this process, if that makes sense. And that's, I guess, what most people who go on spiritual quests try to do. They go into this quickening process. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to the definition of what it is, but that's my understanding of it. And I can't even remember because it's been 20 years since I read the book, but I have it on my shelf, not here, but at the other house. And so, it's that's part of it. So it's like a ascension process, and a lot of people have been throwing that term around. I've noticed in the transformational New Age community in recent times, saying that we're all going through a quickening, which is like this super fast-paced evolutionary frequency shift, basically.
Well, that's what she would have seen with my bands. That's essentially what she saw. She saw a speeding up and a reversal of my bands. So I could not have, there's no way you could actually manufacture that experience. Like, it wasn't like I was after it, looking for it. I even knew anything about it. It was a vibrational shift that happened naturally inside of me. I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't doing any rituals or meditation. It was happening to me. And I thought something physically bad was happening, like I was speeding up. And so so this is part of how I get to the super soldier conversation. So then they said the quickening, and then after that it started to subside, like something, the thing that had needed to happen had happened, and now I knew what it was, and okay, we could relax. The next thing that happened after that was I was on the third week of a water fast. Had done this whole by myself at the farm. I was down probably up to day 21 or something, and it was about 4 a.m, and something woke me up from my sleep. And when you're water fasting, I don't know out there who water fast, but sleep isn't the easiest thing to do when you're water fasting. Your body's gone into survival mode. You're dealing, all this emotional shit's come up from your cells, I was traumatized. I was having memories of being like in year one where my best friend said suddenly out of nowhere she didn't want to be my best friend anymore. And I was like, so these sort of suppressed memories when we're kids and don't have any concept of dealing with them were coming up. And then I woken up and I jumped. I was really up and alert in my bed, and my cat was at the end of. Cats are good to have around for this sort of shit, by the way. At the end of my bed, she was super alert. So if ever something trips me out, I always take reference in what my cat's doing because I know her eyes can see, and if she's seeing what I'm seeing, then I've got validation. I'm not in a dream. So I look at my cat, and then just at the frame of my door, this metallic golden orb, not ethereal, not not an orb like as in we'd see with a camera, but a metallic, physical, tangible, rock solid, floating tennis ball golden orb was hovering in my door. Now, I'm not of the ill. I mean, this whole alien thing, JC, and spaceships, all that stuff, that's involved in my consciousness now. Like, I know we've got realms upon realms and dimensions upon dimensions and energies and entities moving in and around all the time. I know that's going on. But I don't use the word aliens. I don't use those words anymore. But anyway, there it was, this golden metallic fucking thing. And it just sort of basically hovered. It went all very slowly. And my cat and I'm watching my cat. We're both moving our heads, following this thing. And then right up to, it's right in my face, like right there. That's why I know that it was definitely metallic and hard and a thing. And then I don't know what happens after that.
It was the snitch.
Right? It was exactly like the snitch. It didn't have the wings, but that's exactly what when I saw Harry Potter, I was like, oh my God, it was a fucking snitch. It was exactly like the snitch, minus the wings. And then I passed out.
What do you think it was? Because psychically what I feel is it could very well have been your higher self. It could have been your because when I see you, when we met up, you, me, and Campbell, and we were in the same. You both came to my apartment when we were in Melbourne when we were doing our live thing. The night before the event, I was like, I know these two from eons ago. I could see that both of you had golden auras. And it was like, I couldn't explain it any other way than golden. It was like a gold realm that we came from somewhere where the light we emitted was golden, and it felt like another frequency that we all came from. And it wasn't earthly. And I think it might have been one of our highest frequency, we're part of where we come from. I don't know, another multidimensional version of us, which is not us. It's the real self. And I just felt it was gold. And seeing you on stage,
I agree with that.
I felt it as well. This gold-like aura. And this is not having tickets on ourselves. I just truly feel that if you've got a public mission or a role that influences huge amounts of people, more than likely you are not from this realm. That's just what I think. And I think that when I met you, I'm like, the energy is like a giant. Like the energy is like
I agree with that.
Being like an Anunnaki, and I don't mean that in a negative thing. I mean it in another dimension of a higher frequency being, because I don't believe the Anunnaki are evil. I'm just going to call it Anunnaki. I'm going to say whatever these beings are that seeded this realm, whether they were gods of ancient times that lived on Mount Olympus, or they were from another planet in a spaceship on a, whatever vernacular you want to use, I just felt that your energy was giant and gold, and it felt like it was from whatever beings were that seeded this planet or realm. And that's what it felt like, and it felt familiar to me. and that's just, and I don't say it as in, well, we're more important than the average person. It just is what it is. I just feel that's, and I feel that many of the audience is the same. I feel many of the audience originate from realms that are here to help, the average.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, and that the gold features strongly with the super soldier thing. Like, gold is definitely a part of when the craziest stuff happens to me in this realm. It definitely is linked in with gold, definitely. And I think, like, we always hear the term the golden era, the new golden age. Like, this golden concept is definitely pivotal to A, understanding our history, and B, understanding our truth and our reality. Like, it's definitely a part of it. 100%. I can concur with you on that. Gold is important. Gold is descriptive of, where we've come from in a lot of ways.
So tell us, so you see this orb in front of you, you're on a 21st,
and then I'd pass out.
21 day. So you're kind of awake 21 day of a 40-day water fast. I know that major things happen in water fast around the 14th day and beyond. So you hit the 21 days, and then
my vessel's clear. Yep. You clear at 21. You're
are you just having water, or is it saline?
No, it's all just water.
You're doing the pure water fast. Okay, yep. I get it. Right. And then tell us what happens next. You pass out.
Okay, so well, that's it. I pass out and I know nothing more. That's it. That's the end of the story. I'm mentioning it because these are some of the weird things that happen leading up to what happens afterwards. It just happened. That's it. It's not been explained to me. I have no further information on it. There it is. Nothing good or bad appeared to come out of it. It just happened, and I'm telling you. The next major trippy thing that happened was when I discovered the Earth wasn't
it's 11
the way we excellent. Right. Well, this is one of my favorite stories. I've told you a few times this one. But yeah, so I, of course, in 2015 or something like this, got handed a documentary on the flat Earth and thought, fuck yeah, I love documentaries. I watched this historical documentary. 3 hours in, I'm like, get fucked. I can't believe it. Fuck you, God. But like, I've sat here in total service to you my whole life, and you're about to tell me I don't even know the shape of this realm that I walk on. I was really like, I lost in that moment. I was like angry for the first time at this idea of the creator. Took myself out to the bush by myself, like really like pissed off. And then basically all night just for, really, I just basically raised my fist and yelled at the sky, how dare you forsake me? I can't believe this. We're imbeciles down here. We know nothing. How are we in this stupid realm? Like, I cannot believe it. The one thing I hadn't thought to question at that point was like the ground that I walk on, for fuck's sake. Are we that ignorant? So I got really mad. Anyway, I'm telling you a story not to go into a flat earth conversation, but simply to say that in that moment, I got so mad, I raged until I basically had no voice. And then bang, 20 meters from me, this lightning strike hits the ground. No, I didn't even realize there was any sign of a storm. It just banged down this wall of energy. I've never been blasted by noise that loud so close to me before, ever. There's nothing that replicates. It hit me and my hair back like it was tangibly, physically a wall of sound frequency, and it like blasted my cells, every single cell in my body, taking me back to the quickening. It was that on fucking crack cocaine, man. It was that magnified by so much electricity and energy. I felt like the creator come down with those hospital things, then gone on my chest with it and like blasted me and reset me. Bang. It like completely cleared my brain out. I mean, my 30 minutes it took for my cells to calm down. 30 fucking minutes for it to go back to normalize because they were moving. It's like they'd been blasted apart. Like, that's what it felt like. And I've never you couldn't even replicate that. The sound was so intense. And then this little voice in my head, this little voice whispered to me, in contrast to the yelling, it's a hologram. Whispered this to him, whisper, it's a hologram. Now, 6 months earlier, I'd had a dream. All right, we're about to get the super soldier. 6 months earlier, I had a dream. Really a great dream. We were being invaded by alien televisions. I ran up to this high-rise building in Surfers Paradise in my dream. Could see the ocean, 360 degrees around me. I'm screaming at everyone, we're being invaded. No one cares. Everyone's just watching the television. Like, I'm getting no reaction. I go out to the balcony, and I'm watching these things fall into the ocean. And they fall into the ocean as far as the eye can see. And where they land, this iridescent blue light hits the water, and then these towers of dolphins start appearing, like in the ocean, 20 feet wide, up to as far as I can see, right up to past where I can see these towers of dolphins everywhere.
I was about to say, before the dolphins, sorry for interrupting, before the dolphins appeared, I was about to say, televisions in the sky kind of reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where, the answer to everything is 42. And then you say the dolphin. So I'm like, okay.
And on that note, JC, this is very just side note interesting. I think I gave Douglas Adams his very last interview on Earth before he died.
That's right. All right, that's another story.
I know. Right, when I was like 12, 13 years old, he came to our school. I interviewed him for the school newspaper, and like
killed him.
The day after he passed away. Yep. Douglas Adams, fuck off, right? How weird! I know it's very bizarre.
All right,
so anyway, these dolphins appear, and I've never seen an image like this. So, like, it's such a magnificent, extraordinary image. I just like woke up like, oh my god, what have I just seen? Like, it burnt itself into my mind, right? So just hold that thought. Okay, so there's these dolphins, like this dream that's pivotal. I've just remembered it. It's to stay with me forever. So this little voice has told me it's a hologram. I'm in the bush by myself. My cells have been blasted. I've been reset. Fuck. The quickening on steroids. And so the next day I'm sitting on the bush, got my phone there. I'm like, I'm going to buy a book on the holographic universe. I'm just going to buy a book. So I decided by a book. And I'd known the concept before. I'd been through it with David Icke, went very much into the holographic universe. And but I hadn't really integrated it. I'd read it, I had the knowledge, but I hadn't really assimilated it into my wisdom by having any experiences with it. What's the point of reading knowledge if you don't have the experience? It never becomes your own wisdom. So I'm scrolling down now. Normally, probably like you, JC, you're probably more intuitive than me, but I would normally buy probably there's more scholarly looking reference book on the topic that I'm interested in. And there I go down, and there's this really fucking daggy, like hippie to the max. And I hope the author's not listening, but like cover of and it's like dolphins and the holographic universe, and there's like this like hand drawn artwork dolphin, and like it's just I point this out just because like I would never buy a book like that normally, but suddenly I've connected the dolphin dream with the hologram, so I buy that book, right? And then so I'm like, I've got a lot of questions about this. Maybe I just write to the author and see randomly. So I write this email there in the bush by myself to the author and say, look, like I've got a few questions, blah, blah, blah. And within like 10 minutes, she writes back to me. And I was like, wow, what an amazing human being. Writes back and she said, look, you know what? Ask me anything you want. And I was like, seriously? Because obviously I had 40 years of questions going on. So I was like, all right. So like 3 days, I sat in the bush and asked every possible question about the holographic universe and everything. And this wonderful person was like spending all this time with me answering everything. And then after the 3 days, she admits to me, she says this, Kelly, I want you to know that 2 days before you emailed me, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was told that a pure spirit would contact me with a plethora of questions that if I answer will make up the next my next three books. So thus she had been prepared for me to ask these questions, and I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere asking this random person. Thus she answers all my questions. So I go back and I'm like, amazing. Like what is it that's guiding that sort of interaction? That like she would be prepared for a dream, and then the chain of events that brought me to that moment, the dream, the flat earth, the bush. And so and quickly I'll let in a second. I go back to my farm, and at the time, see this image behind me, this makes up part of my old farm, my classroom. And I just like joined her on my tiny little Facebook page, no one on it. And I said, oh, look, check it out. This is my backyard. This is my classroom. And she goes, and she ends up, I goes, fucking hell, man, where did you get that picture from? I was like, oh, that's our classroom. And she's like, one day before the dream, someone sent me this exact picture. Someone sent me this picture. I loved it so much. I stopped and I spent 10 minutes imagining who had created this beautiful world, like who'd created this beautiful image of this classroom. And she could not believe it was mine. That it was, so I found she's in Hawaii. This chick's in Hawaii.
Hang on, I want to just. Is this the book? Is this the book?
Is what?
Ilona Selke.
Oh, that is the book. Yes, that is the author. That was the cover. I
saw Ilona, and you said yeah. When you said Hawaiian, because that's a Hawaiian.
Yep. She was amazing. Oh,
hang on, here we are. Dolphins, Love and Destiny. Is that
she made it. It was the one that I got was Dolphins in the Holographic Universe.
Yeah, I tried to look that up and I couldn't find it. Is that the cover?
But this is the author. No, this is the author. Yes, this is the author. She's beautiful. She's amazing. And I've really enjoyed that intro. But like the lineup of things that had to occur for us to synchronize that moment for me personally. And then I hope that it did support her in, writing her next couple of books. So that was me interacting with all of this rolled into one. So now the Dolphin Towers. This is where we lead into the Super Soldier. So all of that had happened, and all of that had brought a lot of mystical, out of earth sort of like actual experiences into my life.
Was that all during the water fast, those fascinating things that happened?
No, not at all. No. The water fast I do every 2 years. So that's something that the voice told me to do, like when I was 24 or something. Like I was sitting on my toilet, JC, minding my business, never heard of fucking water fasting. And I just said, do a water fast. I was like, what the fuck is a water fast? So I went onto YouTube, which had just started. Like it'd been in 6 months and there's like 2 people doing water fast. They're both they did it for 30 days. So I was like, okay. So I just started then and there. No prep, no knowledge. And then everyone in my life freaked out thinking I was committing suicide, going to kill myself, like that I wouldn't eat was going to kill me because no one had heard about it back then. Wow. So anyway, I did it, changed my life.
Very therapeutic.
I did it for 40 days. And I remember walking in the tram.
Jesus did that as well. So yeah. Go on.
40 days, my first one. I was on the tram thinking, this is like a fucking superhero power, man. I can go to any country in the world and know that it's going to take me at least 2 months to die if I don't have food.
It is a superpower when you fast.
Very empowering.
Wow, I didn't die. I remember the first time I ever fasted, just 24 hours. I was like, I feel fantastic and I didn't die.
Yep.
No shit, Sherlock. What's all your stored fat for? Like, come on, man. As long as you got enough fat, you can do it. Yeah.
Yep. Look, that's why I'm such a big fan of actual self-inflicted experiences. Like, I did 3-week blindfold retreat, just where I blindfolded myself 3 weeks nonstop. I just stuck my eyes together and fucking taped them up, and I just ate dried fruit and nuts and water, basically, no preparation. Had the food there for my cat, knew where it was, and everything was done. The trippiest thing for 3 weeks was like, after a while, when you go to sleep, which is weird because you're already like in darkness, to then wake up, but you can't quite wake up, and you stay in this like in between world for a little bit longer. Like you're half dreamy, you're half awake because you can't wake up. You're not opening your eyes. But I like all those sorts of retreats. Like I do a lot. Well, I used to do a lot where I would I brainwash myself. I told you about that last time, the water fast. And sometimes I just got so fucking stubborn. I just I want to know the truth. Like, fuck, I want to know the truth. I'm not getting up from meditation till I know the truth. And like, we just literally sit there and wee on myself. Like I was pretty hardcore. I must have had a very hardcore, like, those Indian ascetics that sit there and one. I have
three nines, the 3 9s in your numerology. Seriously, no, you are. Yeah, it's that whole searching the higher realms and seeking the inner knowledge and wisdom, and that proclivity towards spiritual enlightenment or seeking that. So you're up to the Dolphin Towers.
Right.
I want to keep you on track. No, that's okay.
Yes, let's
I want
go.
to keep you on track. So Dolphin Towers, and now here we're on this precipice of meeting a man that will change your life.
My relationship, at this point in my reality, my relationship breaks down. I'm going through a relationship breakup. My household breaks down. I've been going through a battle with my beautiful farm behind me, with the woman who did the crystal bowl thing on me, and just suffered from what I'm going to say openly, although I've never said this publicly, with envy and jealousy. It was just a very strong, energetic. I welcomed her into my home. She moved in, and then she ended up like being, as a lawyer, fundamental in breaking the partnerships around the farm down. So in living embodiment as a human being, she definitely manipulated and, cut down and the core energy. So that was going on around me. So there's a lot of like my beautiful world that I spent a long time building and creating and loving, my community, my relationship, were all starting to collapse at this sort of simultaneously time. So it put me in a vulnerable position. So at this point, and I just say it as it goes, right? My Mac laptop breaks down. So I go to fix my Mac, and to do that, I have to go and find a Mac shop, and the closest Mac shop to me is like an hour and a half away because I'm out in the bush. So I take my laptop to the Mac shop, and I go to the Mac shop, and I get served by this entity, right? And he owns the Mac shop, but he was giving me so much fucking attention. I was like, wow, what a nice guy. Like, he is being very but he was being strange. Like, it's like he had his sunglasses on right inside the shop, and he couldn't quite look at me. Like, he was speaking to me off to the side, like speaking a lot to me, but off to the side, like he couldn't cast his eyes on me, which I took note of. I thought, that's weird. Like, why is he not directly? Because I'm big on direct eye contact. And he was being super over friendly and super wanting to give me stuff. And anyway, he said he'd take my Mac, and he took my Mac, and he said, look, well, I can fix your Mac for you. I'm going to be near your village. You can come and meet me at the service station and pick it up in a week's time. So I'm like, great, fantastic. So I left the shop going, what a nice man. And because he was being so generous, giving me all this stuff. Anyways, a week passed. I go to the service station, right? And just to pre-note this, as my life had collapsed around me, and my faith in reality and what all that stuff had started to collapse with the dolphins and the quickening and this, like, the earth, the shape of our realm. I decided to do, I basically was taking gold randomly, JC. I'm just bringing this up because of what you just mentioned before. Like, in this exact moment, as my life started to break down and I was in deep trauma about it and so upset, I decided to tune into the gold frequency. I wanted to know everything to know about gold. I went down the gold rabbit hole. This is just the timing of it. And I started to take Ormus, and I started to consume anything to do with liquid gold.
I've got Ormus,
right?
Yep, I got guided to start taking it. Yeah. And colloidal gold, yep, okay.
Yes, right. Colloidal gold. I was all on that frequency. I'd probably been consuming it for about 6 weeks. I'd watched everything I could watch about gold. I was wanting to see if I could tune my frequency to gold to such a point where I could walk out into the bush and find gold. That's what I wanted to see if was possible, right? Because, like, gold's everywhere. It's an illusion that it's some precious mineral. It's like our gum trees bring gold up in their leaves. Like, it's fucking everywhere.
Your brain is brilliant. I love it. I love this. Okay.
Well, I thought I should be able to be my own metal detector. If I can attune to this frequency, I can apply it in actual reality around my life and go and find it.
There is no average person that thinks like that, right? Like, your lateral thinking is full on lateral. But I love that because you are, and I just want to say this before, I don't want to interrupt, but it's partly because you're in nature, on the farm, with the earth, grounding every day, not distracted by children and EMF and all of that. And taking colloidal gold would also reduce EMF it will help your body deal with anything that may be.
We didn't have anything.
So
no EMF out there. It's nothing.
More receptive, and you've done this water fast and all this, so you're more receptive to these incredible thoughts and ideas. So continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have any grand plan. I just thought, well, fuck it. If my life's falling apart, like at least I can now explore. I have the time to explore if I can become the gold frequency and find it just for fun in the bush, right? So I go and meet this. Should I name him? Fuck it. His name's Jason. Woo! All right. So I've never spoken his name out loud publicly. His name that I was given was Jason. So I go and meet this entity, right? Two things occur simultaneously. As I'm driving up to this petrol station in the middle of nowhere in this little town, like ghost town in the middle of Australia, I pull up and I get this poof, this overwhelming image in my head out of nowhere, seeing him as a centurion, like half man, half horse. Like it just hit my head so strongly. This is a stranger to me. I don't know this man at all.
A centaur.
A centaur. And it like full on. And I saw him as a full on protector of me. Like I just, this whole, like it was like I just in 1 second downloaded 100,000 lifetimes, and it all got summarized in this one image of this man as a male man, horseman, as a protector. And this before I even got out of the car, right? It was just really strong. So I get out of the car. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Like that came out of nowhere. And yeah, I get out of the car and we're just sitting there talking in the car park, gives me my laptop. And I just start telling him a little bit about my gold thing, the gold thing I'm on. And he goes, you're not going to believe this. And he pulls out his phone and he takes a picture, and on his phone is a picture of his hand, which by the way is gigantic hand with covered in gold. And he's like, I own a property, a gold mining property, and this is the gold I found on my property. You are welcome to come and test out your theories on my property. And I was like, wow, that's like fucking cool. But of course I was like, no, I don't even know you, as if I'm going out into the bush with some strange man. As if I'm doing that. I would never do that. But I was like, listen, like, why? Let's catch up for a tea in this town called Texas and talk, let's connect, let's get to know each other. So we did. So and it all happened really quickly. So we start talking. He cooked a little barbecue on this river side, and we start like asking each other questions. And I said, well, tell me about your, who are you? Where'd you come from? What's your life story? And then he starts with his story. I was an orphan. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, yeah, I grew up in an orphanage, in an orphanage down near Goulburn. And I was like, oh, wow, that must have been weird. Like, tell me all about it. And so he's starting to say things like, yeah, well, is this all boys my own age? Like, it was very white, lots of white halls. We all had a number. Yeah, we used to do, like, it was a lot of education to go, and we do classes on quantum physics, classes on IT and technology. I was taught how to like handle weapons and do all this stuff with weapons. And at the end of the day, we'd been given these shots, these vitamins, and we'd be we'd had our own room. And I'm like, that is not an orphanage. Like the story he started telling me, sorry, I should cross-reference this. As I was going through the gold frequency rabbit hole, for some random reason, I also found randomly an interview with Spears. Who's that super soldier?
Max Spears.
What was his first name?
Max Spears. Yeah.
Max Spears.
I was going to mention Max Spears, and you said that. Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, a month before I met Jason, I had just like watched these interviews with Max Spears. Like I'd had no real context about super soldiers. I'd heard about them.
So yeah,
no longer with us. But I was amazed by the story. I was really fascinated and really did look into what super soldiers were. But that was the first time they'd been mentioned in all the books that I'd read, but I've never. Anyway, so the gold and so when Jason started telling me his story, I was like, hang on a minute, this sounds a bit off, Jason. Like, have you ever, and I kept asking more and more questions about it. And the more I asked, the more he told me. And then the more it was obvious that he didn't come from an orphanage in the middle of Goulburn. It was definitely a military complex. It was definitely in alignment with everything you would imagine a genetically modified human being.
Let me explain to everybody about Goulburn and where that is. So for those of you who are watching who are not familiar with Australia, so in our state, New South Wales, Goulburn is down the south, and it is close to a police training academy, and there's a Goulburn prison, and so
Prison.
it has. There's been also whistleblowers who've talked about a lot of MK Ultra-ing sort of stuff. So it is kind of country towards Canberra.
It's
So
just out of Canberra, yeah. It's not far out of Canberra.
Canberra is the capital city of Australia, and it is where our parliament is. And there is a lot of shifty stuff going on there as well. So a lot of underground stuff. So go on.
It's the only place we won't take the Tartaria live events to is Canberra. I mean, we just won't go there. Yep. No point. Not good for us. So Goulburn, so he's telling me the story, and then eventually he's just telling me that, eventually he escaped from the orphanage when he was about 12, 13. And I said, when you say escape, what do you actually mean? And he's like, well, I had to work out how to get through this locked door and this locked door and down this hallway and through this window and timed it with, and it was like full on, like proper military type escape, right? And then he ends up, and then he says, this is his story. Then I just ran. I just ran for like a week, nonstop. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop. I didn't eat. I just ran and ran and ran until I found myself in our area here. And I got picked up on the side of the road by two farmers who ended up taking me back to their house and raising me as their child. And so he tells me this whole story. Now, because I've obviously have quite a critical overview of reality through all the work we've done and all the exploration, maybe someone else would have taken that story on face value and accepted it, but I was just like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, Jason, have you ever considered that this is not the case and that you were born in an institution and blah, blah, blah? And I started questioning him back and created this other ideal possibility. As I did that, as the very moment I did that, and this is all going to sound weird, he drops to his knees. He's a big guy, he's a big, gigantic, imagine what a super soldier would look like in your imagination. He was that. Drops to his knees and goes white, and then just says, something's just happened to my brain. Something's just happened. You've just done something. Whatever you've just said to me has just done something. I've got to go. So he just drops me off really quick to my car and goes, right? And I'm like, wow, that was weird and interesting. We just been talking.
So keywords or something, keyword trigger.
Yeah, yep, which is exactly right. So basically my line of questioning had basically triggered a memory or triggered a chain of neuro, cards that had basically either in that moment aligned with a destiny in the unlocking via my words and the frequency of my words and questioning, unlock something. Enough for him to actually lose the strength in his legs for a second as something in him. So I didn't hear from him for about maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And then, so I, after about that time, we didn't know each other. So after that time, I sent a text and was like, hey, how you going? It's all good. Everything good. He's like, I need to see you. Something crazy's happened. So the next time did I come? I think he came over to the farm for the first time and basically told me, so, okay, all right. So there's a lot to say simultaneously here. So again, when he sees me, he can't look at me. So he's got his sunglasses on, right? He can't look at me and there's this space, this energetic space that is an effort for him to get close to, there's a gap of 4 or 5 meters where it's this push to get any closer than that, right? And he does explain this to me in about one more meeting point. But in this moment, he just says something has changed in my brain. It's like my brain was operating off one quadrant and suddenly 4 quadrants are turned on and I'm firing in a place, in a space that just, I don't even understand what's happening. All this information's coming in. I'm understanding basically to the beginning of time. I'm getting context of the history of the beginning of time. It's all flooding into my brain. It's taken him many weeks to calibrate internally to what's just happened to him. So this is the beginning of I suppose disclosure for himself on what he actually is, right? And something in meeting my questioning actually triggered that. So he's now gone away and taken all the questions that I had and actually like dug into them. He's wanted to know if any of that has validity. He's gone and researched it, gone back on everything he can remember, gone down to try to prove it or disprove it, gone through the whole thing, has come out at the other end saying, "Oh my God, yes, this was an institution. We were basically genetically modified. We were being taught about extremely intelligent things from a very early age. So his work, and he hadn't told me the rest of his story, but he went from the orphanage to being adopted by these farmers who then like put him straight into the army at like 14 because he was so a natural ability to handle weapons, just so natural. Didn't need to sleep, super strong, didn't hardly need to eat, like was completely basically super on everyone else. And they just put him straight in the army. From the army, he just went straight up through the ranks to the special ops in like a year. Into the highest level of the special ops in a year, and then was entering like the going into the sort of like realm of bin Laden's and the realm of that sort of like chaos that was going on in the Middle East to do those sorts of assassinations and work, And so he's like, these are the stories that he knows of his life. He got in that moment, what was it? I don't remember this exactly, but something blew up. Something blew up in his face, and he ended up he should have died, obviously. But the thing about super soldier energy is they don't die that way. Their bodies regenerate themselves really powerfully.
And I watched it, or something was a grenade.
Fuck. Look, he has two stories like this. One was when he left the military because of this incident, because it affected him. He left the military and then ended up going into the fire brigade, and ended up being like high up at the chief of the fire brigades, and ended up like taking a canister blew up and what hit him in the chest, like poof, and again should have killed him. So, but again, he was basically, well, our words would be reset. But I'm jumping around the place. At this moment, he's in the Black Ops. This is a story he's told me. He's in the Black Ops. He's had this like terrible incident. He's ended up in the military hospital. Should have died, didn't die. Didn't know why he didn't die, but just like able to walk out of there relatively quickly. And I watched this, JC. I watched because I wanted proof, I'm all about like literally. I watched a knife go through the arm and the skin regenerate. Like I saw it. It's like well, it's genetically modified. It's not the same body structure or skin structure. There is a different thing going on in these super soldier physical attributes, So anyway, so where was I? So he's recalibrated all this whole story, and he's suddenly like super not paranoid, but he's very conscious and aware that he's got military chips in his brain, that there's
he's starting to deprogram. He's starting to deprogram.
Essentially, yeah. He's starting to deprogram himself, yes. Which, like, if you look at the Max Spears of the world, similar stories. Like, you go through phases of being, like, programmed and resets, and you don't know who you are, you don't know your memories, and then something triggers it, and then your neural brain waves open up again, and you get a flood on of these memories, and it's very disorientating because your whole reality is suddenly, like, not your reality, and then you've got this whole ability to understand so much deeper the situation that's going here on this realm, right? So as we started to, so then he's starting to tell me this, I of course like am right down, oh my God, like you literally are a genetically modified super soldier. That's actually what you are. Like, so then there's like all these so if you imagine watching Max Spears, right? And you can see how, and there's quite a few others like Max Spears that have told their story you can watch interviews with them. There's ways that are consistently you can actually start to question things, right? So I would sit him down and I mean, JC, like, hello, like, if you and I were in a room with a super soldier, would we not have within ourselves high quality, conscious questions that have come from our lifetime of understanding everything that's going on in this realm to offer in that conversation? We would have a lot that we're not coming into this green, you know, we're not coming into this like innocent and without knowledge. And the questions I was asking were huge questions. And then till eventually I started to get down to like the origin of time, the origin of our realm, the origin of reality itself. And of course, then the narrative that played out between this protector energy and me. So, so eventually he starts telling me that like part of the super soldier energetic is that they have an ability to their eyesight's modified. So their eyesight's been modified so that they can see in the dark perfectly, right? They're weapons of war. They can see in the dark like you would use infrared glasses. And they can also see energetic imprints. You know, like when you use infrared glasses, you can see the heat imprints, you can see the energetic imprints. So he's like able to see people's energetic fields basically and their colors, right? Because we all emit. Would you agree with that statement? Do you agree that we all emit?
We all have auric. Yeah, we all have different. They're different energy bodies, and some people can see auras and some people can't. I don't want to interrupt your flow, so just keep going.
Yeah, so like he was telling me that you know, he could see everyone's energetic field. So so the thing that like when he was so weird when I first met him and he was looking off to the side but being very attentive, he then explained that to me that the color and the energy around me was so bright. And he's never come across it and he's traveled the world and world and world, never come across it, that it was actually, he couldn't look at it. And it was of such a specific color spectrum that and this is exact words to me, we thought we had eradicated that from the planet. That's what he said, that this is not meant to be here. This energetic signature is no longer meant to be here on this realm. Yeah. And it has been deliberately eradicated. So he was shocked to even come across it. Like, so that was the whole blinded. That might
explain your own targeting, like, you know, you've been targeted or trolled, etc. So that might explain that. And
well, look, I mean, I'm going to preference this story, everyone, because like, I'm going to tell you that it fucked me up. Right? This whole journey, as I tell you the story, it makes me feel very vulnerable. It makes me feel very exposed. Like my partner's standing here in the room right now and I'm feeling vulnerable about it. It's like I'm agitated that you're even here because I'm like, because the end result of this for me was so much evidence in line with what Jason told me that was absolutely impossible for my brain to accept because it sent me to the beginning of time and my role in it. And this is where your story and my story, JC, correlates. Like, it's really hard to exist here on this realm, take this information, be made evidence to you in your physical reality so your eyes can prove it, but to own it inside yourself is like saying, I own the idea that I was an original architect of this realm. My energy is that old and that big, and that I am a creator God that was pivotal to the story of mankind. Like, it's too much. You can really, I mean, it affected me, and in the end, very negatively, you know, because I had to I had to ground myself back.
Yeah, we're human, and we're here for a reason. We're not just the stories of the Palladian or the Arcturian or the Anunnaki that arrived here, etc. We're more, we are more than this, but we are also very human. And yeah, straddling those two worlds is very it takes a lot of practice. And it's a huge soul shift or consciousness shift in order to be able to deal with both of those things. I have a lot of questions, but really I want you to keep going. Okay.
I mean, my battle was between like what appeared like, as I tell this story, you could hear it as being deeply egoic. Deeply egoic, and at the same time wanting to be deeply in awe of it myself, therefore very humbled to it. And it was a real battle. You know, I've grown up through the monastery. I've grown up into this notion of like, you know, not anyway. All right. Anyway, so okay. So yeah. So first of all, there was the energetic imprint. So the light. So thus he only wears sunglasses all the time. Wherever he goes, he's always got sunglasses on all the time, except for nighttime. Like, because the daytime light, it actually hurts his eyes. And he said that he didn't know why. This is before he understood who he was. So at this point, I've awakened him. Like, and at this point, it would appear that a very timely destiny is played out, where we were meant to meet in this moment and unravel his psyche. Because the storyline between his engagement with me and the age of it, like from the beginning of time, where I literally created him, like, and thus as my companion protector, created him, before the earth realm was even conceptualized, you know, takes us to a whole other level of the story. But the next thing he told me that was a trip was that whenever he is like 100 to 50 meters, like getting to the 50-meter range anywhere near me, he gets overwhelmed with his incredible smell that is so overwhelming to him, he can't even bear it. Like, it's like it intoxicates him. So he has to like stand back from it because he's intoxicated by it. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, fine, cool. Like, I wasn't experiencing that. And he said, look, on your birthday, I'm going to come and give you something so you can smell what I'm smelling all the time. And it's really intoxicating for me, and it's very hard for me to control it, right? So on my birthday, he turns up with a cake of soap that smells like musk. So like musk, like that beautiful musk smell. And he says, This is what you smell like to me. It's intoxicating, and I can smell it 100 meters away.
That's the smell I wear. And and also when I did a recent other life regression, quantum regression with Laura Whitworth, and I was taken to my origins, where I came from, the land of the gods, it smelled like musk.
Yep.
I actually could smell it in the hypnosis.
Yes, well, that's exactly what he said to me, Jason. I remember when I told you this, you are the first person that had a mirror story for me, because I could not find information about this. And I remember telling you the story.
Real quick, when I was at the live Tartaria event in Melbourne, people were hugging me and saying, you smell like musk. And I remembered not wearing perfume that day. And I'm like, do I? And I kept smelling myself, and people kept commenting and going, you smell like musk. And like, I had like my friends that, you know, I finally met them face to face. They were like hugging me, going, and they were smelling me and going, oh my God, you smell amazing. And I'm like, wow, I don't have any perfume on. Like, I didn't have anything. Wow. Crazy.
There you go.
Go on.
Well, so basically, yeah, the smell, that's what he said to me. So this is the smell of the gods. This is the god realm. It's musk. This is where the light that I'm seeing is from. And this is the smell. And I am intoxicated, and I really have to fight to like stand back from it. And actually, after it all, forward another 6 to 9 months, and we're in a different situation. Jason has been reset now. I've jumped a lot to the end of the story. He's had a military reset. He doesn't remember anything. He comes and visits me, and I was like, so he doesn't remember anything. Comes and visit me, and he pulls up in the driveway, and I am overwhelmed with the smell of musk. I can smell him coming. I had my headphones on, dancing with my eyes shut at this moment, and I was just dancing by myself outside. And I immediately knew he was there because I could smell this wave of intoxicating, and it's not like pheromones. It's this. I could smell it, and I was so shocked that I could smell it this time round, not him. I could smell it. That I actually drove him down to the water hole and threw him into the water. We went for a swim because I wanted to know if it was a trick. I wanted to know if he'd actually come deliberately, like. And so we went swimming, and he came out, and I could still smell it. So, and then after a while, once we're sitting there in conversation for an hour or so, it goes away. It's always at the beginning, that the initial meeting, and then we integrate it somehow and we can't smell it anymore. So I had the experience of smelling the musk, and it is fucking intense. It's intense. And you're the only other person that I've ever had anyone say I've had that experience. Yep.
That's, so obviously, I mean, you spent time with him.
Yep.
And it was a very close period of time. And then you're saying that there was a period of time where you didn't speak to him, and then he turns up in the driveway, and you could smell musk.
Right.
You didn't know he was coming.
We're at the end. So we're at the beginning of the story now, and that story that I just told you about the musk and me smelling it was at the end.
At the end.
Up until then, yes, it's up the end.
When was that period of time where you started seeing, as you know, you initially triggered him to go, oh my God, and start questioning things, and then between that and then the reprogramming, the reprogramming.
Probably about 6 months.
6 months.
Probably about 6 months.
And did it happen suddenly? Was he reprogrammed suddenly? Was there a space of time?
No. Yeah, no.
Was there there's a lot of time things where suddenly he changed, or was it gradual?
No. He was very consistent right up until like the very end, where it came at the hand of an accident, and he suffered.
That's right.
Well, yeah. So we'll get to that. We'll get to it. So it's in chronological order. So he would come over to my house like on the weekends, right? And I was just in awe of this whole unfolding, because for me, I could sit there and ask him anything. Like, I mean, literally anything. And he would respond. Like, and when I say I ask anything, I'm not just asking you, I mean, can you imagine? Like, I literally wanted to know everything and had a lot of personal experience and knowledge on these topics. And we went through. And so if Jason, because the whole time, JC, I'm thinking, could be a con artist. Like the whole time, my healthy side of my cynical brain is, don't accept this off face value. Like this guy, he's had your computer, for example. Like he could be, like there was enough evidence that I could say you could be pulling off a con here. You could just be some obsessed being that's just like latched onto me. Really, you could just be going along with this. So I would really put him through the paces, especially with the questioning. And he was always there with the most incredible information ever. Like, shit that you couldn't keep after you were conning it. You could not fake it that far and that long. No way. And like then all the way along, like all this stuff was happening that just magnified it. So every time I tried to discredit it, something would happen in my actual reality to prove it. Every single time. For example, like I had a dream about 4 years earlier in this. It was the most extraordinary dream, and like it really moved me emotionally. It really, really moved me emotionally. Like I woke up. Like my whole heart had been broken. It was like one of those real tangible emotional dreams. And he just like out of nowhere just was like, do you remember that lifetime where you were in this mountain and on this balcony and, retold me the entire dream and said that was me. And like out of nowhere, like just and I've never spoken on this dream. And it was such a big dream that I remembered it. So little things like that, but then trippy things like, all right. So he's telling me the story that I am one of the ancient architects of this realm, that I was part of a group of 13. Here we go. You've heard this narrative is similar, right, to you, that I was part of a group of 13. We didn't have a gender. We were higher consciousness, tall ethereal beings. It was a council. I was at the pinnacle of the council. My job was to give life to creation. We each had our other. And then my other basically went ahead behind the council's back. I mean, I'm putting in really unelegant terminologies here, right? As we would know it down in this realm. But trust me, the sophistication in these understandings and these stories are much higher than I can offer you with our language. So to put it into our Aussie lingo here, our blunt fucking TV sitcom language, basically my other half, my other part, went ahead and created, life without souls, because it was my job to give the soul energy. This is what the story he's telling me, right? So you can imagine,
really
like, my brain's
listening to you. And so it's triggering something in me, I'll tell you.
Okay. Well, my job was
Like
to
a
give
memory.
life to souls. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's.
It's okay, keep going.
Yep. So my other went ahead and created life without souls, and that life without souls would, as we would know, to be energies like the Anubis was one that got brought up to me. The Anubis. These energies suddenly became of the darker, heavier, demonic realms, and because they didn't have the soul from the apex of our council going through them, so the life force. And these souls, this was the first presentation of a lower vibrational energetic expression. First time it had happened as a reality, I guess. And in that, a weapon was created. A weapon was created, and that weapon, I say, would be the easiest thing I would say of how to explain that weapon. Was it was the first expression of fear. But in the essence of that fear paradigm, it also had an ability to infect. And if you can imagine, the life forms at that time weren't of that vibrational expression or experience. They'd never known it. And suddenly it was upon them, and it was causing them to kill themselves.
So duality was being created. I saw this in hypnosis. Yeah. I saw this in hypnosis, yeah.
And then the story goes that that weapon, that virus infected the realm that I was in the 13 council of, affected that realm to the point we acknowledged consciously that we would have to, in order to stop this infecting all other realms, we would have to destroy our own and hold and end it within our realm, destroy our realm, which meant making a decision. And this is big. I can feel I'm getting, whoa. I've never spoken about this publicly. I'm feeling it. It's going through my system right now. So that the decision was made that the other 12 council members would end their lives, that all of their consciousness would be put into my being, so that I, as one being, would hold all of our realm's consciousness and would do the deed of destroying our realm. So it was because the only way to stop this weapon, this virus affecting all frequencies and all life on all realms, was to destroy it there. And it had already gone through our people. I'm going to say our people, it's probably not the right word. And our people were taking their own lives. So if you can imagine, we've integrated fear. Yeah. We've integrated it in this reality. But if you imagine going from never experiencing anything of a lower dimensional frequency, and suddenly it's upon you in full force, like it was such. Anyway, so I, according to Jason's story, I was responsible for destroying that realm.
As he's telling you this, are you feeling it? Are you feeling it's plausible?
I'm feeling it, telling you right now. As Jason was telling it, telling it to me, it triggered me. I cried. I felt it. It was like in him telling me, a massive release, very confusing experience to go through, and very hard for me to accept as I stand here in this little human body with a tenth, like tiniest amount of my consciousness operating it, this story. He then went on to tell me that my other then basically survived. It didn't work. We failed, right? This energy failed. these soulless beings started to exist without souls. Hello, the demonic realms, or whatever word you want to say. And it spread. I walked the realm alone for many thousands of years until I decided to create myself a companion basically, which Jason was saying was him. And he named himself the Alpha and Omega. And as simultaneously as I did that, my other, who operates simultaneously to me in all ways, created Omega. These two Titan-like beings, gigantic Titan-like beings, but essentially not natural. Not of the organic template. I don't even know the right words to express.
Not earthly.
Definitely not earthly. Definitely not earthly. We were definitely not. Earth wasn't in this realm. Earth was not a part of the story yet.
Yeah. Otherworldly. So
otherworldly.
You believe Gaia wasn't formed yet. It was just
right. So Gaia was in a state of being, I guess, formed. It wasn't formed as we would know it to be a realm.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, JC, I can't tell you, we spoke a lot on the origins of Gaia herself. What I was told after this was that that my remorse and my sorrow and my trauma of doing this act of destroying the realm and everyone and every living thing in it, as ethereal as we were, even though we weren't as physical as we know it to be here, like it weighed my soul down, and in a way that had never happened before. Like I took on the burden. I took on, as the apex of this council, took on the burden of knowing that would be the case. We knew that when they took their lives to give me, do you remember the story with Anastasia and the dolmens, and how they would sit in the dolmens and hold their consciousness within those stone walls, and they would die, so their consciousness would always be accessible if you went into the dolmens? It was the same sort of thing. By giving me their consciousness and dying, it would be held in me of all time. But simultaneously, I then would have to hold the original sin, if you like. Like I would be consciously carrying the act that I took, which was to apocalypse the entire realm for the sake of all realms.
So that's a heavy burden.
I know
that's a heavy burden to carry.
And it's been with me forever and for always, and under-acknowledged. And upon meeting with Jason at this time, it ripped open a fabric of my being that I had absolutely not opened at this point. Like, I knew something was different about me. I knew something was different, but I no way ever would take a story like this and accept it as being reality. Yeah. Never. It was too big. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to pause there on that story, because that's just when we're not
tall
finished,
and grandiose. Yeah.
These are the things that Jason's telling me, right? At the same time, he's proving to me that he's a super soldier by showing me his skin repair and, various attributes. And one of the other big ones is that you can't lie. A super soldier apparently is like genetically modified, that if they lie, they get very sick. They get a nauseous reaction, so that they can't hold secrets as weapons of war.
So they can't be programmed. They can't be programmed to tell a lie.
No, they can't. They themselves can't make the choice to lie. They absolutely could hold worldwide secrets within their consciousness in a compartmentalized side of their brain, but they could not say actively, like if Jason was like suddenly captured by the military and they said to him, who have you been speaking to? He couldn't lie. He if he didn't say my name, he would get an absolute physical reaction. So they're programmed to not be able to hold,
so that they can be not siphoned, but they can be harvested for secrets or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. But couldn't,
Okay.
yes, they could keep a secret somewhere in their compartmentalized brain,
But something
but they couldn't
opens that.
tell.
So do you
So
think
this
that
is what
you
he told me.
triggered, do you think that you triggered in him a recognition of these twin souls, and that's when he let the floodgates open of that part of his mind, and it released all of this truth?
I think, well, according to his history, I'm so used to saying history. When according to his history on that topic, it's been we are destined to meet every lifetime, and every lifetime Jason is programmed to serve and protect me, and every lifetime I expect something. I expect him to be in alignment with that service, and basically, like he is there as a creation of me to and like there's basically a higher reason. There's a high, and that would be in our very like basic language here. It would be to remove the weapon, to get rid of the weapon, to end the. It would be. It's all been about like the whole thing for hundreds of thousands of years between my relationship with Jason and me and this realm and who I am is to like destroy this weapon, get rid of this infection, this virus, this lower frequency fear. Now, and fear is not even the right word, JC. I don't even have the language. I mean, so whenever we meet in a lifetime, it instantly deprograms both of us. Now, except this lifetime, he said something to me, and this is interesting. He said, this lifetime, for the first time ever, you have chosen to absolutely consciously chosen to forget who you are, and that you are being watched in this choice because no God has ever decided to eradicate their memories to the extent that you have zero comprehension of who you are. It's never been done. And he said, you deliberately made this decision, and it was a very unique decision. It's never been done to this extent. This is all. I'm not saying this is true or not. I'm just saying what Jason told me.
That's convenient for him to say that to you.
Well, I mean, it's also convenient. Yes, and it's also convenient for him to tell me that he can't lie. Like, what would be the greatest con artist thing to say to me? I can't lie by telling the greatest lie. I can't lie. But he did say that that in order, because we've been at this for so long, we keep coming and trying this for so long, all the different ways we've been trying to like do this. And then I finally, last experience, decided the only way to do it was to come down with zero memory of who I am, zero memory, and to emerge as a sovereign being with all of my God nature made known to myself, that I had to come down and with no gifts, no powers, no knowledge, no understanding, nothing, that there's something about ending this weapon was to do with my complete self-realization from scratch, from zero memory. I'm not being elegant. I'm so sorry in how I'm expressing this, but do you get what I'm trying to say? Do you relate to that?
Yes, I do. I completely understand. I'm aware of all of that. There's just so many questions, so I understand.
All right. So simultaneously, so basically, in summary to your question, when we meet in any lifetime, both of us have an instant deprogramming thing that happens, no matter if he's genetically modified super soldier now or not, or if he's a horseman. At this point,
he's told you, did he use the word twin flame? Did he say he's your twin flame?
No, he always said my other.
The other.
He always said my other. But he's not claiming to be my other. I have another, not Jason.
Right.
Jason tells me I created him as a companion and protector, but not my other. Because I could create life and give life.
That's interesting, because I've had a similar experience with someone in my life who another friend, a psychic friend, identified and said he's a super soldier and he's your protector. And I've gone And it's a weird kind of relationship because there's this weird, like, closeness, yet you can't be together kind of weird thing. And that's not the twin flame. It's not the twin flame. It's not the divine. It's just that always in every lifetime has been the protector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ultimately you created.
According to Jason. That might be the bond. Yeah, that might be the bond. And I did
because
have a dream.
At this level.
Yeah. Long story, but okay, go on.
And at this level, according to this story that I've been told, we as God beings, original God being energy sources, give life, have the ability to create and give life and souls. So, all right. So, okay. So this is happening over here. And now this is, I'm going to tell you a story here. So my dear best friend at the time, who ended up being my greatest nemesis, God love her, bipolar. So, of course, we know there's already energies going on there. Entities,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So she would have these manic experiences, which would send her up to high highs. Very genius, very talented, very musical, amazing. We had an amazing 4 years. I loved her with all my heart. And then she'd have these very big lows where she'd get suicidal and depressed and, she'd disappear for a couple months. But when she had the manic highs, instead of getting sent to the psych ward and put on all those fucking drugs, which tranquilized her, we just allowed her to come to my farm and just do the whole manic part in my backyard. So I would have her come out and she'd be building, she'd take 500 objects from my house and put it all in the backyard and create these amazing shrines, for example, and then I'd have to clean it all up. Or, she'd walk around with no clothes on, but in the parameters of my farm, whatever it was. So, the whole community adopted her energetic into quite a shamanic one. And, we really powerfully supported it as opposed to drugged her up and sent her to these fucking psych units, which, we all know what goes on there. So as Jason's emerged in my life, it's triggering her, as you can imagine, right? And it's triggering her entities, as you can imagine. Now, Jason gets a really strange reading of my friend. I'll call her my nemesis. That's the correct term for her at this moment in time. God love her. Of being multiple colors, all fragmented and moving really, really quickly. Can't get a reading. This doesn't like what he can, doesn't like it, won't look at her energy field and doesn't really trust her and doesn't want to be he's instinctively, no good, danger, real Robinson danger. But he's she's around, so she's getting a little bit more manic. He's around telling all these stories. She's clicking into the Ashtar Galactic Command.
Yeah.
At the same time, walking around.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And okay, so I decide to. Okay, this is one story, and I'll tell you this is one of many stories of this ilk. Right at this time. So I decided to take her for a swim at the hot pools in Moree. So we go down there to calm down her manicness. So I'm driving along suddenly. And so we go there, she's getting all worked up and we get in the pools, cool. We start driving home. It's about 10:30 at night. It's dark on these roads. There's no cars. It's pitch black. You can see a house 10 Ks away. There's nothing. It's just nothing. And suddenly she's stop the car in the middle of the highway. She's starts talking in a Russian accent, really angry at me, Russian accent. And she's calling herself Priyat. She's told me this is 4,000 years in my past and that I'm Priyat's my other. She has become my other. Right? This energy, the other, the one I've been warring across this whole time. And she's so mad at me. She's yelling at me that how dare I play this ridiculous game where I forget who I am? How dare I deliberately come out of here and remove my memory? And I'm this God being on this realm. And she was so angry that I was playing. She was you're being a child right now. You're being so immature. You just remember who you are, really angry. And then she's well, forget it right now. You, what did she say? I can't even remember the right words, but she was angry in Russian and she was saying in perfect Russian in this heavy accent, right now, fucking wake up, stop acting like a child Like you've come down here as this god acting like a child. Wake up, there's a meteor coming right now to hit your earth. And if you don't stop it, it's going to cause an apocalypse, right? Okay. Now, as I tell this story, you guys are going like, yeah, I mean.
Okay, hang on. So just to clarify for the audience, because that was a whole lot of stuff. So your nemesis, who is in technical terms bipolar, but sounds like multiple entities using her as like a vessel to talk through, somehow is fragmented enough that she accesses something that has knowledge of your possible history. But did she, the human, ever hear the story of Jason?
I think she would. Yes, I mean she was there when all this was playing. Yes,
but when he was telling you about that you were
not those conversations. No.
Okay.
No, she wasn't there witnessing the actual conversations, but she would definitely have heard me talking about it in these times. So she definitely had context. Yes, but she was also on the manic. She was manic at this moment, so she had the context.
Yeah.
But she was starting to move into the mania of bipolar. So, but what happened? So, yeah, she could have been like, going through and like making all this crazy stuff up because she's heard this story and like her brain's like, as bipolar can do that. But here's what happened. So she's screaming at me in Russian saying she is my other Priya 4,000 years ago in my past. She's contacting me right now. There's a meteor about to hit. No, I don't even know into meteor. I don't believe in them. But there's a meteor coming to the realm. It's about to hit. If I don't like fucking wake up to myself and stop acting like an immature child, I need to stop it right now. It's going to be apocalypse. Now, just as she said that, JC, and this is where my head starts to get fucked up as it does in all these stories, these red fireballs start coming and landing in the bush all around me. And fires, spontaneous fires are starting to like emanate from, and like I can see 50, 100 Ks all around me. It's pitch black, it's flat. We're on a road in the middle of nowhere. And these fireballs are landing and setting fire all around me. Like at the very same time. And suddenly a fucking house on the horizon bursts into flames. Like a house goes up in flames, right?
Holy fuck.
So I'm being told this story. She's screaming at me that I'm this, like, I've made this retarded decision as a god to come down and forget who I am, and it's the biggest joke of the universe. Wake up right now, there's going to be apocalypse. Like, it's happening.
So Jason is in the car with you?
No, Jason's not there.
All right, okay. So you're driving with her? Is that... I'm just trying to get
we were driving back from we were driving back from the hot pools. It was about 10:30 at night.
Okay.
He is yelling at me so personally, like as if this being has been in conflict with me for 100,000 lifetimes, like mad as fuck and personal as, and in this dialect, Russian. Anyway, so hello, there's like literal fireballs flying onto the ground all around me and houses going up in flames. And this is not in my mind. This is in reality.
Did you ever see evidence later, or could you possibly research if that ever happened around that time?
Yes, the fire brigade end up. So she's screaming at me. The freaking things, fires are starting all over me, which is scary. We're in the middle of a drought, by the way. So this is like really bad. We're in the middle of a drought, a really bad one. So I'm sitting there going, holy fuck. All right. It's like, you got to take this on face value, Kelly. So I stand there and I just like, I see this meteor and then I just imagine it breaking into 1 trillion musical notes. And then all these musical notes rain down on the realm, all these new vibrational notes we'd never heard of before, raining down. And the whole thing disappears and turns into this beautiful, amazing song line. That's the first thing that came to my mind. That's what I did. And so I did that. And as soon as I finished that, the police came. So the police are like, the police take a long while to get there when you can see them coming up the road. So we've parked in the middle of the road. The house is on fire. It's just over there, but we're the only ones around. There's all these like little fires happening, of course. And like walking around the car, pacing around the car, speaking in this Russian dialect, and the police turn up. Hello, who's going to look like arsonists in this moment in time? Like, we're the only ones there. So I'm freaked out. Hello, I've just taken on board this whole event and all this energy, and so I'm having to hold it together to talk to the police who are like, "What the fuck are you doing here? How did that happen? How's this happened? What's going on?" I'm like, that house is burst up in flames with this fire. Something's fallen from the sky. And then the fire brigade comes. This big meander up this road. So the police were there. The fire brigade ended up turning up. The entire thing did not turn into the newspapers the next day. So I called the police department the next day to find out what the conclusion had been. And it was it had and I expected on the front page of all the newspapers. It was a big local event. So there was news that a house had burnt down, but nothing else. Nothing else. And I was just like, wow.
This meteorological event happened. Did the police, did anyone else witness things coming out of the sky?
Well, I mean, that was literally, because when I spoke to them a couple of days later, they didn't, because I wanted to know what the explanation was. How are you explaining what just happened? It was a fire of a whole house burning down, and then these little fires starting everywhere. And they just didn't have an explanation. They didn't know. They didn't have an explanation. So then I told Jason what had happened. And I was like, what just happened? He's like, well, Kelly, exactly what she told you just happened. And I was like, oh, that's such an annoying answer for me. Because I want to see the tangible. I want people to be freaking out. We've had a meteor shower and it's been reported everywhere.
So she says 4,000 years ago, she was Priyat, but you ready?
I'll say the name.
And the meteor's coming. So there's kind of this overlay of time doesn't exist, and all of this is where we're witnessing this all at once, but then it has a physical impact in this realm at this time and space.
Yes. Yep, exactly. So Priyat was speaking for 4,000 years in the past, in my present day, to me presently, and responding to me in that moment. And this meteor was coming down and creating evidence in my reality in that moment. Could have been an event that occurred 10,000 years in our future. I was just getting shadow evidence of it, it was, talk about Mandela effect, talk about really
time doesn't
questioning
exist.
what
It's
the
all,
exactly.
Yeah. And I do know that when we do past life regressions, for example, it's until your consciousness hits that note or whatever, that frequency of that particular triangulation of events, it doesn't activate, if that makes sense. So only when we put our consciousness on it, it activates that event in the hypnosis, in the regression.
Yep.
And that's how I was shown. It was almost like a records, just imagine stacks of vinyl records on top of each other, all existing at once. And then we pull out we put our focus on that thing, and it kind of bleeds through into the other realms.
That's a good
crazy
explanation.
Yeah. That's crazy. And okay.
You can see how it would not be possible. When everyone talks about we want to be awake and awake to all of this stuff, honestly, you couldn't hold it. It's not possible to exist.
No.
There's no way. You could not hold a tangible reality.
Yeah.
With it moving around like that all the time.
Yeah, trying to even just explain the basics of time and space doesn't exist to people. They can't comprehend that. Trying to explain just basically that you're multidimensional, they can't comprehend that, let alone all the things in existence at once in you. People can't comprehend that. People, the injustice in this world, and God doesn't exist because there's injustice in this world, and they can't see the bigger picture. So yeah, it's a lot to hold, and most 99.99% of the population can't comprehend these things. Okay, so Priyat, I have a lot of questions. I'm assuming that your friend, my feeling is that she is actually not a reincarnation of Priyat, that she is just
no.
She's just this vessel.
Definitely wasn't.
She's just this vessel that this consciousness is speaking through. Okay.
Definitely. Yep.
Continue.
Yep.
Fire. the story of the fire doesn't exist in real life. Like, they've wiped it. Their memories have been wiped. They don't know how it happened. The police and the fire brigade.
No explanation. Yeah.
Random event.
Yep.
And now?
So, all right. So then we go home. So now this is, of course, this is peak at her. She's now in a manic state, hardcore, right? And she's just staying as Priyat. She's staying as Priyat at this moment. So we go home, and just like she's just talking to me like she's Priyat, seeing my actual house and my artwork and through Jane's eyes, and she's acknowledging like how beautiful the artwork is, and she's so like amazed at what I can do, at the same time so mad at me because I've just like made this decision to like basically anesthetize myself and my memories. And it's like she's almost like, the energy she gives me is that she's very pissed off that I'm trying, like I found some sort of hack to like break this cycle by taking my memory away, like taking completely who I am away from my experience, that I'm somehow hacking. It's never been tried. Anyway, she's just pissed. She's pissed, right? So, but anyway, so eventually I go to sleep. Don't know, goes off walkabouts all night. I wake up. So I wake up. Now, Jason's kind of come back into the story. I wake up and created this throne in the backyard. Like this chair surrounded by flowers, beautiful candles, and it's good, amazing. She's an amazing artist, right? And I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, where's oh, I've said her name. Oh, that's her name.
You've said it many times.
That's her name. That's her name. And I have not once spoken publicly on this topic ever. So here it is. And I might have to reverence to you, my friend.
I might have to bleep it out.
Well, look, it's up
to you.
It's reverence to who I know you are, that I feel this container can hold this story. So I'm happy not to hold any details back. Her name's
Okay, go on. She's on a throne. She's on a throne.
Yeah, so she's not on a throne. She's made a throne.
She's made a throne.
And then I wake up and she basically from bed takes me to this throne, right? Yeah, so she takes me to the throne and she starts, are you ready for this? This is it. This is the shot of the trip in my head. She starts channeling Ramtha.
What?
Now, here's a few things.
Okay, so wow.
Okay. Now, I am a big student of Ramtha's. I have been in my past, not so much now, but I love that Hierophant teacher. Now, one thing Ramtha says, and it was always said, is that he will never channel through another entity ever. Like, if ever you find anyone saying they're channeling Ramtha, that's never going to be him. He will exclusively only speak to JC Knight, about to say JCK, and that's that, final. So she starts to channel Ramtha. So I'm just thinking, oh, here we go. She's just being manic. Like, I know for certain that this can't be real. Right? For certain. Except this time round, so I went to a Ramtha teaching in the Blue Mountains. It's in Bathurst, JC, many years ago. And Ramtha actually was there and did some amazing tours. But in one of them, you could go and give him a hug. You go up the back and, give him a hug. Or JC Knight a hug. Mm-hmm. And I went up and gave him, and my bangle got caught in JC Knight's hair. Now, Ramtha isn't really in this body. He's just operating the vehicle, so he's not really about. So he's not even conscious that I am entangled in his hair, right? Not even conscious of it. So he's marching, and Ramtha marching down back to the stage, and I'm like having to chase behind him, trapped in his hair, right? Trapped in JC Knight's hair. Mortifying, so embarrassing. And he doesn't acknowledge me at all. He's not acknowledging me. He's not stopping. He's not assisting me. It's just that I'm just trapped, tangled in his hair. And then eventually I managed to get it out and go and sit down, right? And it was a really embarrassing moment, and it was all on the big screen. And so suddenly she's like got this bangle tangled in her hair. As she doesn't know the story, right? She doesn't know the story, and she just barely knows anything about Ramtha. I don't talk about it. Got this thing in her, and she's like, Remember this? Remember when you had your bangle tangled in my hair and I marched forward and didn't acknowledge you? Do you remember this? This is what she's saying to me as I'm channeling. And she's channeling to me Ramtha. So if anyone's going to say anything that counteracts my absolute truth and knowing that Ramtha does not channel through any other being, no matter what, she suddenly recalls this story that I've never told her about this bangle getting caught up in JC Knight's hair.
Okay, but I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. But if it was an archon, it could possibly have that knowledge and replicate Ramtha.
Mate, possibly. I think any of these stories could be archons. Absolutely any of them could be archons. Right. Like to this day, JC, I would never sit down and say any of this is true. Like, I'm just sitting here telling you what happened. I don't have any, I honestly could not sit here and tell you if this is real or not real or true or not true, or if it was good or bad or archonic or demonic, anything, nothing. I'm just telling you the story. And absolutely, it would fit an archonic moment because she knew stuff that I've never told her. And she was speaking in that very unique accent of Ramtha's. Like, Ramtha has a very unique dialect, the way he presents words and phrases, and been a big part of my life, because when I was on YouTube first time round, it was the Ramtha school that basically I took my teachings down as a result of an interaction I had with the Ramtha school, which was not to ever try to paraphrase or retell Ramtha's teachings, because I was going to the teachings, then applying it to my life, then retelling it through my version, and that's against the rules of the school. So it's all been very poignant to me, the whole Ramtha side of things. So
what was she saying as Ramtha? What was she saying as Ramtha?
Oh, okay. Now, listen, I'm going to preference this and say I find this quite mortifying to say this publicly. And I know there's Ramtha students in the audience. You're going to enjoy hearing this, but understand that I am deeply cynical to this process as well. Okay. It's very mortifying to say this out loud, but this is what she said. Archon, very possibly. Mm-hmm. Right?
Trickster.
Ramtha. Probably the ability for this to be truly Ramtha speaking would be I would say 1%. Because I just can't believe it. I just can't take it on board as the truth, even if it is. He said, do you remember this time where your bangle got caught up in my hair? Entity. He always says entity. I didn't acknowledge you then because the time wasn't right, entity. I will bring you onto stage when the time is right and tell my audience who you are. Who you are is my creator, entity. Entity, you are my creator, and the world will know. And I was like, get fucked. I'm never going to listen. I cannot. I'm never going to. This is a Hierophant teacher to me.
Right now on my podcast.
Yep. This is a Hierophant teacher to me. Reverence to the max I have in this teacher. I have been trained and taught with absolute sovereignty that this teacher does not communicate through any other being. My respect and reverence for this wisdom that I've gained from this teacher is utmost, to take on board that concept beyond that was it. I would never going to accept that information ever.
Yeah. And if you were another person who was egoic and who was very much wanting to get some kind of power play out of that, you could become one of these fake these charlatans that are out there,
definitely
claiming that they are the spokesperson on earth for such and such, you know. And so, I get it, but you're not.
Never. I could never. And but this is going on simultaneously to Jason's narrative at the same time, which is basically saying the same thing. So it's all insane and all way too much for my brain to even comprehend as even being possible in any way. But then she goes on and she says, do you remember the story of the being that came down from the sky as I screamed at the unknown God, and it came down with a giant sword, entity, and it said, Ramtha, go and conquer yourself. And so I lay siege to the known world, siege to the unknown God who had taken my mother and brother and family, and said that was me. It was you, entity. You were the one that gave me the giant sword. Now, of course, you cross-reference it with Titaria and the giants and the giant realm and the heavenly realms and the beings coming down with the giant beings. And I'm like, okay. And then it went on to speak of the fact that there would be time I would go onto this ramp the stage. He'd introduce me as his creator on the blah, 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 blah. And then, so just to head fuck me even more, man, because I was like in this suddenly, bang. I had a full on premature Kundalini rising. Full on, my temperature went off the charts. It went I can tell you it's really chatty, but flying up my spinal cord, right through my crown, bang out of my head. The whole world went completely it was like I was staring right into a light bulb. It went so bright. I could not even open my eyes. Everything went bright. My whole Kundalini exploded and I had no idea what was going on. No idea, no training in that, no discipline, no idea how to contain it, respond to it. I just broke through, something in me broke through so intensely that after that moment, I checked myself into a hotel. 3 days in darkness, I sat. 3 days, JC. I turned down all the blinds in darkness to calm my fucking Kundalini down to a point where I could interact with society on any fucking level. And I, for weeks and weeks after that, could not look anyone in the eye. And I am big at looking people. I could not look anyone in the eye. Every time I cast my eyes on someone, I would know everything about them. And it was horrific.
Yeah.
The first person in many, many weeks I could cast my eyes on and broke through this and return me to some level of normalcy was an old man selling bananas in a vending, like a street stall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have never, ever
it's
to this
like
day
a Doctor Who episode. Come on, let's just face it.
It's fucking
it's like,
crazy, right?
when Donna gets, I don't know if you've watched Doctor Who, but when Donna gets the Time Lordy stuff coming through her, the light trying to hold that in a human body is too much. This is crazy. I've had a very, very, very minuscule version of that happen to me, and I couldn't cope with feeling and knowing and reading people's everything. And I had to lay down for like a day, but it was not the bright light thing that happened. So, okay, this is intense. I think this is going to have to be a 2-part video, just letting you know. And that's okay. Like, we'll split this up and we'll talk about it in 2 parts.